to our second evening of Hastings Storytelling Festival. We look forward to sharing with Xanthe and meeting Xanthe's friends. That was a bonus to us. We didn't know that Xanthe was inviting lots of friends to the goddess element of our festival this year. We had hoped to be doing this live, of course, with Xanthe. So we were planning to be part of a goddess festival that she was producing that we hope will come next year. But we're having a taster this week with 4 different stories over 4 evenings. And as I said, this is our second story. There's lots more information on our website, and lots more information about Xanthe and Xanthe's friends as well. And I wanted to hold up Xanthe's new book because she's just written about goddesses and heroines. So I think we've got the right person for the job this evening. We really value any comments that you make in the chat or any questions that you want to put in the questions section. There'll be time for Xanthe to talk at the end. Particularly, let us know, the benefits of running a festival in this way. Obviously, we're learning lots. It's completely new to us to run online events in this way. So we want to know what are the benefits, what are the disadvantages, and where you're all calling in from is really interesting too. We'll send out a follow-up email with a little survey. It's very short. And if you have the time to help us with that, that would be really helpful. Thank you. The last thing from me is really just to say that it is recording, but you won't be seen. So feel safe, in watching and enjoying the next hour or so with the wonderful Xanthe, who I'm going to welcome now, and she'll introduce her friends. Thank you very much, Xanthe.
Oh, thank you very much, Mandy. And I can't help looking at your necklace there. It looks like you've got a winged Isis or Ahura Mazda there, which is very appropriate. Great. So yes, we are going to have a 20-minute film filmed and directed by Kathy Hammad in her beautiful kitchen. And after that, there's going to be about 20 minutes conversation with the fabulous Arash Moradi and Katrine Faber and Aksel Striim, who are zooming in from Denmark, and Suzanne Corbie, but more of them later. I think we can just go straight to the film. Thank you so much for coming. Today we're going to make a recipe that combines cuckoo sabzi, Iranian herb fritters, Egyptian egger and the bog standard omelette. We're going to call our composite recipe a Pisces in honour of the goddess Isis. The ancient Egyptians acted out the story of Isis and Osiris as a ritual. And as part of this ritual, they would grow an Osiris out of plants. So I decided to grow one out of herbs in my garden. For the outline, I referred to an ancient seed mould from the Egyptians. Then I cut it out in a newspaper template, gathered stones from the beach, and using the template, made the shape of Osiris on the soil. Then I planted the seeds. For Osiris's crown, I used basil, which is antioxidant and antiviral. Basil's good for stress, depression, diabetes, not to mention snake bite, colds, and cleaning the nasal passages. It's also a kingly herb. The Egyptian pharaohs were all thought to be incarnations of Osiris. For the throat, I used oregano. One of its health benefits is to aid coughing. For the chest, dill, an anti-inflammatory and great protector of the heart. Coriander for the stomach, and just because it's delicious. These appendages are not arms, they're a crook and a flail. The crook is a shepherd's crook because Osiris was guardian of his people, and the flail separates grain from husk. I sowed them with parsley. It's full of vitamin A, which is good for vision, and vitamin K, which helps blood clotting and bone strength. On the very first day of the planting, the dog had a dig and scattered the seeds and the stones. I had to do a bit of rearranging and reseeding, but apart from that, the seeds grew like magic. They took 7 weeks to get to this point. And here I am, harvesting them for this Pisces. Our Pisces will be a ritual dish. And if you think about it, rituals and recipes are quite similar because you follow a set of instructions towards a desired result. For both rituals and recipes, you need utensils, sacred objects. The knife. I use this to cut the herbs of my herb Osiris. And if you consider, you give death to the plant, but you give life to the nutritious Pisces. This is particularly special, this implement, because for the Egyptians, this was actually a goddess. It's called a simplum, which means the great assembleress, or she who reunites. Our third utensil is, well, in fact, all of these vessels, because in goddess lore, vessels stand for the womb of the goddess, the pot of plenty. And if you are going to cook with love or create a ritual, you have to put your heart and your soul into it. You have to want to give with wild abandon, which brings me to our next implement, which is the whisk. The whisk aerates the spirit, and the ritual partner of the whisk is the sistrum rattle. Now, as the whisk aerates, so the sistrum rattle gives you divine breath. It's in the shape of the ankh. And when you shake the sistrum rattle, you are in fact shaking up the molecules in your own body. You're beginning to energize the space and bring the gods down to you. So here we go. And if you really want to get into the mood of the abundant vine, you have to just go all out and get into the spirit of creation. So we're going to just add a little bit of magic to the proceedings. Yes! Oh, and that's very auspicious. When it flows abundantly like that, it's very, very auspicious. So, they were the utensils, now for the ingredients. In the myth of Isis and Osiris, the number 14 is very important because Osiris had 14 different parts of his body. So we have 14 different ingredients. Oil, salt and pepper, cumin, eggs, barberries. Now, barberries are like a sharp version of a currant, and you can make your own barberries by soaking currants in lemon juice for a while. Breadcrumbs, walnuts, and herbs, coriander, dill, parsley, oregano, and basil. And of course, last but not least, the magical ingredient. There was once a goddess of the earth called Isis. Her hair flowed abundantly like grapes over her perfect neck. Her limbs were like supple, green, twining, growing shoots. Her cloak was a mid-month moon circled by stars. Her feet were shod with sandals of incense. Her dress was decorated with lilies and roses and ivy. She was absolutely, stunningly perfect and gorgeous. Isis was the goddess of the sun. Every morning she would wait for it to rise out of the white of dawn and say the same words. And as we say them, we're going to beat a little bit of life, a bit of breath into the eggs. Create life, love, life, desire, life. Burn to know life, to share life, to protect life. Create truth, love, truth, desire, truth. Create a more pure love, create a more pure life, create a more pure truth. Isis was married to the god Osiris, and if she was quite frenetic, he was very calm. He spent his time contemplating drops of water on lotus flowers on the River Nile. But when he and Isis danced, vegetation would rise up like notes in the air. Every good story needs conflict, and every good recipe needs a transformation of ingredients. Isis and Osiris had a brother whose name was Set. He was the lord of destruction. Think blazing desert, think salty ocean sucking down the sweet waters of the river. Set had snapping jaws and scorpion claws. He was jealous of Osiris. He wanted the power. And so he had a party and invited lots of guests, except Isis, of course. And he showered these guests with presents, all the riches, the abundance of the lands around the river. Mystery gift, said Set. And he brought in a coffin. Whoever fits it can have it. Well, one by one, the guests jumped in. Some were too short, some were too tall, some were too fat, some were too thin. But when Osiris jumped in, he said, "See, it fits me like the grain fits the husk." "It certainly does," said Set. And he slammed the lid on the coffin and threw it into the waters of the River Nile. Inside the coffin, Osiris felt the turbulence of death. He was going to leave life and he wanted to give a gift to the people, but he didn't know what. His blood began to heat up as he contemplated what he could offer them that would make their lives less barren, less difficult. So let's heat up the walnuts. Osiris began to break himself down, and we've done the same to the ingredients. We've whipped the eggs, we've chopped the herbs. Previously, I've ground up breadcrumbs and spices. And in the same way, Osiris made himself into an essence, an effluence of his best qualities. And this effluence so bubbled up in him that it went out of the coffin and into the river. Let's tip the good things into our liquid mixture. We've got the combination of herbs here, and you need a good lot of herbs for this recipe. Barberries, breadcrumbs, cumin, a good lot of pepper, and salt. When Isis returned, she just started searching for Osiris. She followed his scent downriver until she came to a tamarisk tree. The coffin had gone in there, and the tree trunk had folded around it strong arms of dark wood. But she split the tree trunk open, opened the coffin, and when she saw what state her husband was in, she stretched herself over him, her head to his head, her feet to his feet, her hands to his hands, and she called him, called him, called him. "Look at me, listen to me, come to me, show me your face, shine on me, open up the road to life." Nothing. And so she changed herself into a falcon and began to beat the air with her wings to just stir up life into him. "Show me your face, shine upon me. You've never turned your back on me, my sun, my moon. Light, place you made empty. Protect me like a male protector. Osiris, opener of the ways, open up the ways." He sighed, and as he did, his sex rose from his inert body and impregnated her. The waters of the River Nile withdrew, leaving a silt that was thick and black and perfect for growing things. And as the seeds began to sprout, so a child began to grow in Isis's womb. She called him Horus the Falcon, after the falcon shape she'd taken while bringing life, momentarily, to Osiris. While she was giving birth in the reeds, Set found the body of Osiris that was sheltering in the coffin still, in the reeds, and tore it into 14 pieces. Even though Set had hidden every one of the 14 pieces in the stinking swamps of the Nile, Isis didn't give up. She went out to find every bit of Osiris, but first she prepared herself. She needed to purify. So how do we do that? Let's have a look. "Purify all that which appertains to the god. Bring forth the utensils of Isis, with the hair flowing over her shoulders, with the arms not being bared." Okay. Hair flowing over the shoulders is okay. Arms not being bared. Purify all that which appertains to the god. So we will need to purify the simplum, because it is the simplum, the great assembleress, that will find all the pieces of Osiris's body. So let's get the water running. And we will start to delve in the dark waters of the River Nile. Let's start attempting to assemble Osiris. Now, if we are going to go into the fetid swamps of the River Nile, we're going to need the passion of love. So let's get the fire as hot as it'll go and see which bits come out. So, oh, straight off, clearly the head. And that looks like an upper limb of some description. The hips are just a foot, I think there. Yeah. So Isis found 13 pieces of Osiris's body. The ancient Egyptians loved making images of Osiris. They didn't just make one out of plants, they made one out of resins and precious minerals that were all crushed, and jewels and spices, anything that was scented, fragrant and joyous and lovely. And then they would put each of the separate ingredients, there would be 14 of them, into pots, cover the pots with Nile water, and then mould them together as we're going to do. So here's some parts of Osiris that I made earlier, and I remember there's not 14 pieces, there are 13. Isis found 13 bits of Osiris's body, but the 14th piece, the phallus, I think this is phallus shaped enough, don't you, had been eaten by a fish. So Osiris's fertility, his magic, it's too good a moment to miss, was given to the Nile forever. I better swallow it whole because all of the fertility needs to go in there. So now it's a bit of creative assembling. So head, torso, oh, it's getting a bit sticky here, hips. I don't quite know what that is. It's kind of like a muscly leg. Yeah, he's quite a superhero here. So very big muscly arms. Yes, I suppose he was the equivalent of a kind of action man. Oh, still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's it. I don't need that one. 12, 13. And when they'd finished making their Osiris, they would decorate him with gold and lapis lazuli. But I'm going to use radishes and olives and gherkins because that's what's traditionally served with the Egyptian egger. And yeah, I'm going to decorate him. So here we go. I think I'll use a gherkin for the nose and some olives for the eyes. Yeah. And maybe a bit of watercress for his hair. So let's... I mean, his hair was supposed to be blue-black and as thick and dark and shiny as obsidian, but we're going to use green because he's also a bit of a green man. Here we are. This is... makes him look a bit feminine, but he was obviously in touch with both his male and female sides. Let's use radishes for the mouth. I don't know quite how that's going to work, but let's try it like that. Oh yeah, and maybe a few. Well, I don't know. What, a navel? There. So I think that'll do. Actually, a little bit of and maybe a bit of luxurious pubic hair, seeing as he's no longer endowed. There he is. Well, there's a big debate about what the body of Osiris is. Is it just the feeling of lightness and magical wonder you get when you see seeds sprout? It could be. Or is it the sense of vegetation spreading over the earth? Because it was said that Osiris left his body and walked a path to the stars. Whatever, if you want to be one with the Egyptian mysteries, then you consider that Osiris had a crown of ostrich feathers. And if you eat and contemplate that as you eat, you will be eaten and still feel as light as a feather about that, then you will be, as I said, one with those esoteric mysteries. Whatever, Isis is Eusis, or bro, and Pisces is Nisis. Keep planting, keep cooking, keep telling the stories. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to that. And I think it is made by the music of Arash Moradi. Now, we don't know what instruments the Egyptians would have used, except for perhaps the ankh, what's this called? Sistrum rattle. And this one was given me by Bernadette Vallely from Shakti Sings, if you were here last night when we were working in Glastonbury. And you can get, they're hard to get, you can make your own, but you can get this from Tahia. I'll put a link in the Hastings Storytelling website. They're quite hard to get hold of otherwise. And there would have been drums and there would have been lyres. Now, Arash Moradi's in Los Angeles at the moment, so he couldn't be here. He's actually working in the day, but I have managed to have a quick interview with him earlier, so he can just talk to you a little bit about the instruments and cooking, because also I forgot to say it's thanks to him that I've got this recipe. Oh, and of course, Otto Lengi, but I went looking for it after having tasted the Iranian herb omelette that Arash cooks. Thanks, Laura, if you'd show the film of Arash.
I'm Arash Moradi. I am the Iranian Kurdish musician. I mainly play an instrument called tambur. Tambur is a 3-string ancient type of lute, which is mainly played in Kurdish side of Iran, but the different version of this instrument exists around the area in Anatolia, in Turkey, in the whole Middle East, up to China, and similar instruments with different names in Central Asia, all the way to Europe.
Arash, you really kindly did the music for the Osiris and Isis film that we've had tonight, but also you were the inspiration for the Iranian herb omelette, which is also made in Egypt when it's called ega. And did you get that recipe from your mother?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think music and food are two of the most amazing and most important things in anybody's life. And in many cases, these recipes, these foods are very unique to families. So each family does it, slightly different. And there are similar foods, like similar songs in different countries, and they call them different names. For example, my Greek friend sent me a song some time ago, and I listened to it. I said, oh my God, this is that famous Kurdish song, which I always thought is a Kurdish song. But then I realized they have this song in Greece as well, and in Turkey as well. And it's exactly the same melody, but obviously sang with different languages, different lyrics on it in different languages.
But Arash, you weren't an ordinary child in the kitchen. Your mother saw that you were extremely interested. Am I right?
I liked the cooking especially, and my mom in the beginning was like, okay, now it's time for you to leave the kitchen because I'm cooking, don't disturb, and then go and do your homework. And I always stayed longer, and finally she was convinced that, I know something. For example, if she was going to do a stew, lamb stew with tomato or okra or with courgette or something, she would ask me to just keep an eye on the thing which are frying before adding into the actual dish. So I was taking a part, helping her, and I was always try to steal a bit of food and try it, and she would always say no.
Could you show us the instruments or maybe a couple of instruments that you used on the tracks for the film?
So what I have here is an instrument that you heard or you're going to hear in the film. It's called tambour. So tambour is a 3-string lute made of 3 pieces of wood. So this is the sound box, and then the soundboard, and then the neck, and the 3 of this, because 3 strings. And mulberry wood usually is the best wood for this instrument. For centuries they use the same wood. Sometimes they use other woods too if they can't find good mulberry wood, like walnut or whatever. But the best sound so far, I think, comes out of mulberry wood for the sound box. And for the neck, usually because it's more dense and stronger wood, they use walnut. Usually from really old woods, because what happens to this wood, they have to keep them in a place for a few years, and they rub mud on it when the wood is fresh. So what the mud does, it gets dry on the wood, and it takes out all the like damp or different things inside the wood, so the wood would dry out faster. And it has 1 bridge here and 1 bridge up here. And usually we tune these 2 lower ones the same, always the same sound. And top one we tune at 4th or 5th. So that's the main instrument I used in that CD, which was my solo CD. I composed around 4 or 5 years ago, most of them. And we had, you could hear the drums, which were played by a great friend of mine, Habib Meftab Boucheri. He's a great drummer, lives in Paris. And I think he used maybe this drum a little bit as well in that some of the combination with other drums. So this instrument is called tombak. It's 1 piece of goblet drum. It's 1 piece of wood and just a skin. It can be goat or sheep skin. Another instrument I play sometimes. This is not. I don't perform. I use this with you when we perform the setar, Persian setar, which has 4-inch strings and a smaller sound box. And the technique of this one is completely different because you only play with that nail. So you hold your fingers like this, and these fingers just like this. Yeah, it's quite nice.
I love
to play with.
Very romantic.
This is an instrument that in Persian classical music is like the piano in Western classical music. So most musicians playing other instruments play this instrument as well.
I think you are probably the god of music and cookery in my mind. So thank you very much. Your CD, The Bridge, is something to really, tune into, and it actually makes you feel physically better. There's something about listening to this music that if you let yourself just listen to it for an hour or two, it actually, I think, changes your blood pressure into something very, very good and healthy. Arash, thank you so much. Also, there we have the magical Arash. And yes, you can get The Bridge on Amazon. And we used, I think, whispering passages, whirling phrases, gilded dust, and huras from that CD. And I didn't finish what I was saying. I think the Egyptians, as well as using things like the sistrum rattle and rattles in general, would have used lyres and lutes like Arash was playing, and drums. So thank you to Arash. We're going to go now to our first guest, Suzanne Corbie, who is a self-acclaimed priestess, witch, and sacred heretic. And if you want to go any deeper with any of the goddesses, you could do a lot worse than getting her Goddess Workshop CD, where she takes you through all kinds of descriptions and also rituals to sort of enter into the presence of goddesses. And hopefully she will be with us at our Goddess Festival running workshops next year. But Suzanne, I just wanted to talk about the themes of that little film of Isis and Osiris. And what we were doing, Kathy and I, when we were making the film, was we were following the recipe of ottolenghi, as you saw, simple and inspired by Arash, and also a ritual recipe. And the ritual recipe is from this book, The Burden of Isis. And it's translated by James Teagle Dennis from ancient papyrus or papyri, whatever you call them. And it's really a series of chants. And they're two goddesses, but really one goddess. It's Isis of the sun and her dark side of the night, Nephthys. And they are just repeating over and over again this grieving. Look at me, listen to me, come to me, show me your face, shine on me, open up the road. That's one part of it. And the next part is a kind of summoning, come running after me, my heart is looking for you, look after my heart. And then they actually bring to birth, through ritual, through performance, through weeping in the streets, Osiris. And they call him, I'm just going to look this up because I don't know, it's page 45. They say, he cometh and is visible, the Lord beloved, the great egg. He cometh and is visible. So they keep kind of getting us into the space by repetitious chanting. The babe, the child, he cometh and is visible, the great beloved Lord. And the idea was that if they threw enough candles in the Nile, if they did enough grieving, if they went through enough rituals, then he would be reborn next year in the vegetation. And I wonder, Suzanne, in your great knowledge of goddesses, is this a familiar practice?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's for I mean, the sun, for example, wouldn't rise for sure without rituals and ceremony. The land wouldn't breathe life without rituals and ceremony. And those rituals and ceremony had to mirror the kind of order of the heavens and the seasons. So for the ancient Egyptians, it was all about order against chaos. Set, as you mentioned in your story, the story of Isis and Osiris is chaos. And Osiris represents order. So it's not so much about right and wrong or good and evil as this kind of order and chaos. So they see order. If they can mirror the order of the universe, the order of the stars, the pattern of the stars, and the regular appearance of Sirius, which was so connected to the tears of Isis and the flow of the Nile, then if they could mirror that, if we could mirror that as people in ancient Egypt, then all would be well. There would be harmony and there would be balance, and the Nile would inundate and everybody would have enough food and it would all go wonderfully well.
Yes, and
so important, yes.
Yeah, I grew an Osiris out of plants, and you've done something similar, haven't you? With your gardens of Adonis?
I have indeed. I did some gardens of Adonis, the gardens of Adonis. So the Adonis was another god. He's a dying and resurrected god. And he won the heart of the goddess of love, Aphrodite. And where he died, where his blood fell, crimson anemones sprouted. And every year in Greece, the festival Adonis was held, the Adonia, and it was celebrated every year by women. And they went to rooftops and they danced and they sang. And then they got broken pieces of terracotta and they planted fennel seeds and lettuce. And then they'd take them all along and celebrate them. Then they'd take them to the edge of the sea and they'd bury them. So I thought that might be a nice thing to do for Adonis, being a spring vegetation god who descends to the underworld in autumn. So I made these little gods. I used watercress, and then I mourned, his loss, and then took them down to the edge of the river. And then another time I actually made some molds of him from gingerbread men molds. And so made his body. And then I planted anemones. So anemones are also the flowers that sprang from his blood. So I made some garlands of anemones and took them down to the river as well. So it's a lovely kind of ways of honoring these old traditions in modern ways.
Yes, and I think Laura has uploaded some images from ancient vases and things. Laura, could you just show us those images of the gardens of Adonis?
Yes, there you go. She's watering the plants there. So these women would have come from it was only women as well that were allowed to do them. And this is what's interesting, because it's the same with the Osiris and Isis myth. It's only Isis that can put him back together. It's not another god. It's, there is only Isis who has this power of magic to breathe life back into Osiris. And in Adonis, it is the women who mourn for him. It's the women who make these gardens and bring him back to life.
Mm.
Yes, so you've got various priestesses there, you've got the bowls, and they're being offered to the god. He's on a ladder, which is kind of interesting, to the ladder between earth and heaven. So, you know, he's in that liminal space between the worlds, if you like. So actually kind of, I mean, even mourning Tammuz and Dumuzi in the Sumerian mythology. I know we're distracting here from Egypt, but, you know, the vegetation myth of Tammuz and Dumuzi were also venerated in the same way. So we actually think that the gardens of Osiris, or the bodies of Osiris that were genuinely created in ancient times, and the gardens of Adonis actually came originally from Sumeria, with the practices of honoring the passing of Tammuz and Dumuzi, who would have died around the time of August and then was resurrected again. So they're dying and resurrected gods.
I'm just wondering if that was just more practical, the women coming down from the roof on their ladder.
Could be, yes, it could be. Yes, I think the ladder is quite symbolic, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, the fact that they went to the rooftops, why would they go to the rooftops anyway to do that? They could have gone anywhere, but that idea of traveling to another place is quite symbolic of traveling to another realm, if you like, and standing midway is in that liminal space, which is where you would call upon a god.
Yes, yes, and I love the picture that you chose next. If you could show us that one, Laura, because it really brings to life what they were doing.
Yes, that's that's a painting by John Reinhard Wegelin in 1888 that's called The Gardens of Adonis. And yeah, you can see all those old bits of, I mean, they didn't have to be brand new pieces of pottery. Any old bit of pottery seemed to have done, but there they are all running down to the sea. For some reason, running down to the sea was quite significant. I didn't live by the sea at that time, so I went down to the river and planted them near the river. But things happen, you know, when you recreate the old myths, as you could see from your lovely recipe and cooking there. You know, you are communicating in some way with the old myths and the old traditions and the old legends, and somehow bringing those old gods alive, I think.
Yes, it's not just in your head anymore, is it? It's from you into the earth, and then the magic happens with things growing. Thank you, Laura. I think that's great for the images. Unless you wanted to talk about Attis, did you, Suzanne?
Did you want me to mention about the dismembering of Osiris?
Oh, yes. That was my next question, yes. But,
Attis, of course, was another dying and resurrected god, and for him, instead of anemones who were born from the blood of his dying, violets grew up. So the first violets of spring are Attis, you know, coming back. They're not just violets, they're Attis. And when they had the great festival of Cybele in Rome in spring, the Hilaria, they would bring this big pine tree, because she turned him into a pine tree, and they would decorate it with violets and coloured wool, and they would bring it ceremoniously into the temple on the spring equinox, and then they would bury it, and then they would resurrect it 3 days later, which is kind of interesting, don't you think? 3 days later, he was resurrected in spring. I think that's highly significant. And then in terms of just coming back to the dismembered parts of Osiris, in terms of us, you know, and our understanding in modern times, I think there's a real message in these myths, even today, that is being reimagined and re-envisioned, that is tremendously important for us to understand. And with Isis, who is the ultimate goddess, the ultimate divine feminine, she's wife, she's mother, she's goddess, she's magic, she's got all of that together. And as she seeks the dismembered parts of Osiris, so we too can seek the broken parts of the masculine, our animus, because as women over centuries, we've been subjugated and dominated, subdued and broken and silenced. And we need to remember those parts, to put them back together again. And Isis built a temple at each time where she found one of those parts. Let's make that sacred. As we retrieve our strength, as we retrieve our voice and reclaim our confidence and reclaim our ability to be authentic and stand up, then like the goddess Isis, we can breathe life back into Osiris. And she conceived the god Horus. And the god Horus was the child of Promise, who would go on to vanquish Set, but not kill him, only vanquish him, because killing him would not be a balance. There would not be the balance of chaos and order, and we have to maintain that balance. So maybe in kind of that reclaiming and remembering, we can reclaim a new age for women where there's equality and balance. Who knows? Who knows?
Thank you so much.
Wouldn't that be good?
Who would
You're welcome.
wonderful. It will be wonderful. And I know that our next guest, Katrine Faber, will be really resonating with what you're saying, because she is an expert at retrieving your voice and finding out, listening to the voice of your landscape. She is a voice virtuoso, there's no other word for it, as you will see, and she goes fearlessly to wild places. Before I carry on anymore, I'd just like to say hi to Katrina. Are you there?
Hi, Xanthe.
And
Hi,
Aksel.
everybody. Aksel is here too.
Hi.
Hello, Aksel. I just wanted to just reminisce a little bit, Katrina, because I was laughing today when I was thinking to myself, you know, this book, The Burden of Isis, this ritual that we're following, there's two women. They wear crazy wigs over their shoulders. They go into chaotic, dramatic, wild places. They do body sculpture. They write Isis and Nephthys on their arms, and then they go and throw candles in rivers, and they do all this stuff to an audience. And I just thought, it sounds like performance art to me. And you, I think you are a companion in crime in mixing performance art with storytelling, because you can't help doing anything else. It's the way you go. And the other thing is, you are amazing with animals. You're like one of the old goddesses of the Egyptians, because the animal breath used to blow through them, didn't it? And I just have to tell the audience, you know, in Katrina's festival last year, singing our place in Denmark, she was so charismatic, she managed to get women crawling naked through the fields, chewing flowers as cows, didn't you? As one of the films. And, you know, and I'm going to hand over to you now to talk about, you know, your response, your connection with the Isis and Osiris.
Yeah, thank you so much, Xanthe. And thank you for all the inspiration through the years that you have given me and still gives me. It's wonderful. Thank you so much. And the last time you gave me inspiration is very, very, very newly. It's now with the film, when I watched your wonderful film in the kitchen, your kitchen film. And especially the end, I had some kind of enlightening moment when you it's a very ordinary daily thing you do. You're cooking, and you're still doing the ritual. And the last piece of action is this: eat, let yourself eat, and let yourself be eaten, and then you will feel the lightness of the light of dying, by dying. And I really liked that part, and I felt inspired. I felt this is it. This is the essence that you're giving us right now, cooking, the essence of what it is, for me at least, to live, to eat, to taste life, to enjoy life, and also to let myself be giving over to be eaten, the daily practice of living with the practice of letting go of control. I cannot control. I don't know when I will die or what will happen. I have to let myself be eaten by life, and in the end, let myself be eaten by death. And this I found very, very beautiful in your film tonight. So thank you very much for that. And this inspired Aksel and I to do a new improvisation, because actually I think as human beings, and also especially as artists, we have to practice this art of letting go of control and going into the unknown, also when we create art. And Aksel and I like to do improvisations also, and not decide what will happen. And yesterday, after having seen your film, we went down to the lake. We live in this little village, an eco village outside in the countryside, outside a town called Aarhus in Denmark. And we have a little lake there, and we went down there. We had to wait till the afternoon because there was a lot of people out. The weather was very good, but finally there was a little quiet, and we went there and decided to do this little practice of going into the unknown. And Aksel brought his fruit. Aksel, you play many kind of different instruments. You play the cello, you play drums and fruits, and you have a very special instrument. You will tell about this instrument later. But yesterday you took this flute that you have made from a drain pipe different drain pipes. You took it with you down to the lake, and we went there, and I had my voice, which is my main instrument, and we sat there and we thought about you, Xanthe, and thought, let us eat and let us be eaten, and let us go into the unknown. And then we made we filmed a little improvisation down by the lake that you will see now, I think.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Fantastic. Just Katrina, tell us about those swans.
Yeah, this is not an animation. This is when we finished the song and the playing, we just saw on the lake that this family of swans were there. I know they had been here in the village in the summertime, but suddenly they were there very very close to us in the lake, and I just had to. We had a camera on a camera standing, but I just had to run and grab my phone, and then I filmed the swans. They were just there listening, and it was wonderful. It was a gift from the unknown, I think. And and I thought, the swans, what is it with the swans? And actually it is like this, that in the northern mythology, the three goddesses who take care of the tree of life, the Yggdrasil, the Norns, they live there under the tree, and at the tree there's also a well, a well, and in this well there lives a family of swans also. And swans is in the northern mythology also a symbol of transformation, of life and death, of pureness. It's also connected to the Valkyries, which they also takes the form of swans sometimes, the Valkyries. So it was just a gift that came to us with the improvisation. And I can see there's a question here that some of the song reminds a little bit of a yoik, which is the Sápmi, the way of singing of in the northern Scandinavia of the people of Sami people. And I can tell that that I have been exploring the human voice for many years, and visiting many places in the world, learning about ways of singing and singing traditions, and also the Sápmi people. So and I'm very inspired. We have been doing a project for the last 6 years, which is called Singing Our Place, which the festival last year was also a part of that. But it's a project that through artistic processes explores connection between us humans and our living surroundings, and especially trying to listen through the voice, through singing and making sounds. And this is not something I invented. It's a thing that I discovered that we have done, the humans, for many thousands of years in all over the world, connecting with the land, with the landscapes around us through the voice, and also connecting with our own landscapes, interior landscapes, through the voice. So this is a thing I'm exploring, and the yoik songs the yoik singers are part of what they're doing is also singing the places, singing the lands, connecting with the land through the singing.
And the thing that
yes.
Yeah, the thing I really love is seeing the connection between you and Aksel, and you out there and really singing the land. And for me, I feel like Aksel is a kind of Osiris, because obviously he's got all 14 parts and he's in great health and he's not walking a path to the stars. But Aksel, I know, brings together, actually remembers various items into instruments, and I know builds an old form of cello with all the people in your community. And I think, didn't he make an instrument out of a swan bone?
I'm just, it's okay.
And I tell you, yeah, I have a swan flute on this side it's from this.
From the bone in the wing of the
Yes.
swan.
But now I'm actually play many concerts in the church.
In the church,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so all my instrument is in the church.
So he can't play the swan flute this time, but next time. But we propose that you play a little bit from this magic flute that you made by the drain pipes.
I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, just a minute of this. So could we hear that, Osiris of the night?
The flute is overtone flute, and in Norway it's very normally folk instrument, and then it has this size here. But this flute I play on the video was here in a bass, hvad hedder det, bassudgave?
Bass version.
Bass version, yes.
And you made it yourself by the.
And it's very long, so you all have to lock the lock here. So I used to put around, hvad hedder det, røret, røret rundt.
I don't know how to explain that in English. It's to turn the pipes around.
Okay, I play a little bit, and it's only play with the overtone. So some tone is not like a piano. So some tone has other tuning. And this tone is a ground tone, and it's nearly so deep as my cello violoncelle.
So beautiful. And I really, we don't know what instruments Osiris played, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was a pipe like that, because he apparently used to sit and meditate on the waters of the River Nile. So thank you so much, Katrina and Aksel. And all the guests tonight have been amazing, but there is a chance now, if anybody has got any questions for Katrina or Aksel or me or Laura, who did the tech, or 18 hours. I'm afraid Suzanne's had to go, and as you know, Arash is in LA working. But if anybody's got, there's no open questions here. Anybody want to leap in and ask a question? No.
So I will come in, actually, if that's okay. And Katrina, when did you start vocalizing like that, when you really channeled different animals and the wildness in your voice? It's amazing.
I think I did it very early as a child. Also, like you, I really loved to be outside, and I felt it much more easier as a child to talk to trees and to animals than to humans. So I found some kind of freedom in this language, and of the birds and of the dogs and of the cows and the horses and the animals around me in my childhood. And yeah, so it started there, and then it happened that also I got so, how to say, full of mistrust to the world of the adults that at some years when I was a child, I stopped talking to adults. I didn't want it to enter this kind of human language. I couldn't. It was too hypocritic for me. So I had some years when I was a child where I only talked to animals or to other children, or I was in the forest also just being there. And in the end, I was kicked out of school because I didn't want to speak in the school, and I was sent to a boarding school, and then slowly I started to speak again. But I had somehow I had to rediscover my own voice, and I also in these years got very quite unconsciously this time, but I was very aware of the different sounds in the human voices and in voices in every kind of, also the animal voices, but also the human voices. And there I started to have this deep interest in, because I somehow had to find my own voice, find the place in myself where I could feel that this is here my own voice belongs to. And I think I still had this kind of feeling in family with the animals still. So sometimes it's still easier for me to say hello to a horse than to go to the human. This is a familiar language for me still. So it very much comes into my songs and my soundscape still as a performer. The animal sounds. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Katrine. Well, you know, you are a constant inspiration and a total wonder. And I will say that Katrine lives in a community where your children can go and, you know, help goats being born, and you are very, very close to it, aren't you? Everybody living together.
Yeah, we're lucky to have this familyship with the earth and the animals here. It's yeah.
But Katrine, I've just been asked a question here. Where did your love of myths come from, and what was your inspiration to bring them into everyday life? And it's Velvela who's asked that question. And I just think it's probably the same as you, is that you're continually looking for a meaning outside yourself. And I think that myths answer every problem that I've ever got. So, you know, if you've got any problem, say if you've got a love triangle, you might turn to Tristram and Isolde, and you might look at how that love triangle plays out. If you've gone into a tragic space, then you go and find Inanna and you go down into that descent and know that you'll come back up again. It's just, I think, for me, myths actually was Bible stories as a child. They get under your psyche and they're full of symbols, and it's boning down those symbols, like Suzanne was saying, oh, you know, 3 days, does that remind you of anything? You know, whatever religion you've got, they'll connect and make you feel better by contemplating. You know, you might be dying, but you'll be reborn, you know, moment by moment basis or longer times. But anyway, I think it's probably time to wind up now. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Katrine and Aksel. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura, for doing the tech, and Mandy and Naomi and Jane, the team right behind the whole time, and all the funders. But also to say that tomorrow night we have quite a fantastic lineup. We have Tanya Batt, who is going to be talking about garden porn. I'm not going to say any more than that. You just have to come along and find out. And if you know Tanya, you know it'll be a riot. And we've also got a friend of mine, Gisela Reyes, talking about a ghost story that happened to us in South America. And Anna Lines talking about her show that will hopefully come to the Goddess Festival along with Katrina next year, about Frida Kahlo. And the stories will be based on fruit, Inanna, and the Virgin of Guadalupe. So I hope to see you there. And if not there, Thursday for the raunchy tales, all on the website. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xanthe. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you bringing in so many special friends too. Thank you, Katrina. And we look forward to tomorrow night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll keep a note of your comments and come back tomorrow or Thursday and join us again. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.